welcome to this second panel. Very interesting discussion. We have a panelist joining us online. Mayurakshi is joining us online. She couldn't be with us. So a topic very, very relevant. I mean, everything is tech first, you know. I mean, tech has changed our lives. The way we live has a lot of interference of tech. So in that sense, something great to discuss and have these experts with me today. I want to start with you, Balaji. My first question to you is, it's often said tech and business, they sit in silos. Traditionally, we always have been thinking like that. Is that the case still, or is tech the business now?
I think it depends on the business that you're in. So a lot of the businesses are businesses first, and tech should be an enabler. But I see a lot of businesses now that are tech businesses themselves, right? So I think it's very good to have that clarity that are you a tech business or are you a technology supporting the business? And I think the fundamental way you drive and you run technology and you drive the business teams depends on that. So if it is a technology business, then of course you build the technology first. But personally, I believe it's better to understand the business first, right? If you have clarity on what is the business that you're trying to run, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, then it is appropriate to go and build the specific technology to support that. Otherwise, sometimes we get too excited with technology. I recently met few folks, they built the technology and they came to us asking that, what problem can we solve with this technology? So I think that's not typically a great situation, because you invested a couple of years into building the technology, but you don't know what problem can be solved with it. So
Vishal, your observation of this?
Yeah. So I agree that we are coming from the times where tech and business are in silos. They are treated in silos, but we need to understand the consumers of enterprise IT. There are three different categories who spend on enterprise IT. One is government, another is large corporates, and third is small and medium enterprises and startups. So their perspective, category-wise, is different. I would start with government. In last few years, we have seen that government is fast and furious on its way to adopt technology. You look at FASTag, you look at direct accounts, reimbursements, you look at anything, faceless assessments. So it has already broken that ice. Now it is no longer like tech, and their business of serving the citizen is not in silos. If you look at the large corporates, I would say it is very, very partial. They've already broken the ice. They've already digitized most of the things in processes and operations they could digitize. Now they are sitting in another silo of the next level of tech adoption, which is AI, ML, smart manufacturing, industry 4.0, where they need to break ice, and that would be. And the third category, which I see would be the largest consumer of enterprise IT in coming years. They exist in millions and they compete on global standards, where they will need to be sophisticated on IT, and still they are sitting in silos, except for their account and some of the material management. They are not tech enabled. So this is where I would say the third category, which is startups and MSMEs, they are sitting in silos because they are still seeing IT as an expense, not as an investment or enabler. So this is what I would like to.
Okay. I can see Mayurakshi here. Mayurakshi, your quick thoughts on are the silos still existing in businesses?
Hi, nice to meet everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but we'll definitely make it happen another time. So I think the silos definitely exist. I would agree with my colleague here, but it is all for the good, right? So I think a common problem across industries is that while, the newer age technologies like AI, ML, on the whole has taken over the technology digitization world. I think a lot of businesses have, while we focus on very complicated solutions or enablement, we've, I think, forgotten are some basic processes which still need a lot of digitization. I think businesses have jumped to what I call, plan B without even looking at plan A, or they've gone to second, third mile. So I think that's where these silos, quote unquote silos, or companies like mine, we are aiming at looking at kindergarten first. Like we said, we directly went to secondary school. We forgot about kindergarten problems. So I think if we start there, whether it's on the private side or whether it's the government, where Elixir is focusing on, there is huge opportunity yet for all, and it has to be a golden handshake between the silos or companies like us and the larger multinationals which are providing digitization and advanced technology services.
Durga.
Thank you.
Durga. Okay. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Your quick thoughts on this. You've heard your panelists before.
Yeah. So, for us, I think as Netradyne, we're a little different because for us, it's, and Balaji talked about this, for us, it's the technology which becomes the business. People have talked about AI, ML, we're in the business of increasing safety, right? And for that, the tech is fundamental to the business. And without the tech, the business would not be there. So.
Okay. Coming back to you, Balaji, tell me, how do you identify, innovation? Tech is all about changing. It has a certain life cycle, every few months, few years, it changes, How do you track this change and deploy solutions that are effective and impactful for the business, What are the indicators that tell you that now is the time to pivot?
I think the easiest way to identify is the acceptance of what you are trying to do. So I'll give an example. So we are in the airport services business. And what we do is that we allow users to go into the lounges, and we build the technology to do that. Now, before us, the industry has been run in the same way for 20, 30 years. But what we have done, I think recently, and again, this is an India first innovation, we've changed the model itself, and most of you may have used it already. So when you go and use your credit card to access a lounge, that is a rare exclusive thing that happens only in India. And we have built that, right? So acceptance, now that is considered common, and you may not even consider it to be an innovation because now it's part of your daily routine. Everyone's using the airport lounges here today. But it is a fundamentally different model than the way it works against the rest of the other countries. Second, I think the way, if you're building a product and you see the demand coming ahead of time, and there is a backlog. So our customers are different banks, our customers are the different networks like MasterCard, RuPay, and so forth. So they are wanting our technology to be integrated into their solutions. So the moment you become, instead of you trying to, go and sell your technology to your client, if the demand comes from the other side, I think that kind of indicates that you're on the right track because they are demanding our tech to be integrated. There's a backlog of projects on our end, where we need to integrate our SDKs and APIs into their environments.
Vishal, tell us our audience about the area of operations. And second, there's a lot of competition where you operate, the SME sector, you're trying to enable them go on digital first, right? That's your business. But tell me how, in the presence of solutions like AWS and the likes, one, how do you stay nimble and impactful at the same time and yet get the business going?
See, there is very peculiar thing about MSMEs, they are so fragmented. Their decision making is not happening by any scientific process. MSMEs have only one guy who is a captain, leader, and he's the owner. And necessarily in non-tech MSMEs, they are not having any knowledge about IT, but still they make IT decisions by impulse. So when I talk about the competition, IT industry has actually started, developing the product top down. First they have developed the products for very large enterprises because they were less in numbers and there was large volume. So even if we look at Amazon or any other such a technology enabler or infrastructure provider, still the products are designed keeping in mind very large use cases at a very large scale. So these products are so feature rich uh, that makes it complex for someone who doesn't know the technology. And that is where MSMEs have a very specific problem. They have hundreds of features. I'll give you an example. Any firewall product, if you look at, it has multiple bandwidth management and it has a load balancing feature. MSMEs have to buy firewalls to protect their networks also. Now they have only one internet connectivity at the most, they are using some broadband. So they don't need multiple bandwidth management. They don't need load balancing. So this is a disconnect, where if anybody is actually catering with a very minimalistic and simplistic product, which has, just removed all the clutter of all the features which MSMEs are not going to use, probably they will win this game in this competition. So this is my take and this is our strategic approach. We identify 20% of the features of very well proven products, and then we focus on those 20 features. We make it very cost effective, and that is perceived as a value for MSMEs. It is simple and they don't need, it's kind of DIY.
Mayurakshi, here your thoughts on this short shelf life that tech comes with. How often to pivot, when to pivot? How do you decide on that?
Good question. So, we've been battling that from the start. And, as a upcoming company, you cannot be customizing all the time, right? So I think how we've been really been able to, really draw this as an USP is really, Elixir, has marketed itself as a customized boutique customized solution provider, which means we are not taking a particular product and trying to force fit it across corporations, but what we are doing is really trying to understand their business problems and go the other way, right? Understand their business problems. Hopefully one business in a particular domain will have the same problems as the other company, and hence develop and productize our solutions accordingly. So I think, having said that, you also want to do something that is less disruptive. That, as a technology leader, I do believe is a key. You don't want to walk into a legacy company, disrupt entire operations that people have been doing, for 50 years. I think it is up to us as technologists to, give enough respect to the people who have worked in certain companies in certain positions for 20, 30 years. And, I'm a big follower of that. So having said that, once you you do something which is less disruptive yet essential to the business, I think you ensure that you're not doing something with a short shelf life.
Great, great. Durga, your thoughts on this? You are pure play, born in tech company, right?
Yes, we are.
So innovation is all the more,
Yeah, it is. And,
daily,
in
a weekend for you, right?
not really, but if you look at our business, which is vision-based safety, we're probably much more complex than the others. So let me try and explain. We first need the tech to be able to recognize and then predict a potential unsafe event, right? Based on camera feeds, etc., etc. So there's one part of technology which is all about AI, machine learning, algorithm, analytics to get precision, all of that. The next piece is actually to be able to enable it real time so that the driver of the vehicle actually can take corrective action. So there comes the technology piece of embedded tech, edge computing, all of that on a device, right? The third piece is actually enabling people to actually use the data that they're getting, which in our case is videos, to actually make informed decisions, on safety. And that's all about cloud and presentations and uploading a minute-long video with the right latency so that it becomes effective, all of that. So, as you say, we need to be able to, for example, if a customer tells us that I want you to be able to identify for me when my driver is sleepy, right? Just as an example. So we need to look at all three of these areas and see what technology we can use to pivot at that point of time to make that a reality for our customer.
And my example of AI as an end user is I search for a pair of shoes. It's been chasing me for the last 1 year, wherever I go. So that's AI, where it is. I want to come to you, Balaji. One of the critical points of technology is real impact on business. What are the right strategies? A couple of examples, if you could cite, to enable that, to make that happen seamlessly.
I think the first thing is to know what is the KPI that you want to measure, right? I think it's better if it's a business KPI because we get too fascinated by technology sometimes, right? So instead of talking about number of users, etc., or the kind of hits on the server, the obvious, at least for me, is to look at the business KPIs, right? What is your revenue? What is your EBITDA? What's your growth percentage in terms of revenue? What kind of IT products are supporting that growth? Which LOB is contributing the maximum growth to it? So sometimes what happens when you're in IT and there's a business team, they constantly come to you asking for new development, new projects, new enhancement. That is a constant, requirement the way we operate. So we are a product company, right? So we have to make our own product. But there are different sales people and different accounts people who are running their own teams, right? And they need their clients to be serviced. So when you are a common product company, you need to keep prioritizing what should be made first. So instead of getting attracted by the technology, it makes sense to go back, look at your books, look at the revenue projection, which LOB, which product is going to give you the maximum amount of revenue, which is the KPI, right? And that is a kind of, and whichever product area is supporting that needs to be done. Having said that, what is also equally important is to have a view on the future, right? If you keep constantly focused on the current revenue, you're not going to get future revenue. So we always invest about 10 to 20% of our time dedicatedly for new projects, NPIs, new initiatives, R&D, because that is where the future revenue is going to come. And I think strategically managing the allocation of resources between KPIs and managing my new projects, which is going to give me future revenue, I think that is the fine walk has to be balanced between these two lines.
So essentially you're saying that it cannot be a fancy shop list that you go and pick up everything. It really has to matter to the business, right?
Yeah, unless you can support that development cost with some revenue projection in the future, it becomes difficult to sustain or to justify to yourself, why you would be investing so much. But unless it's a different revenue line, which is going to give you a future growth, then it is easy because then you're talking about 5 years, 10 years ahead of time. Also, it's important to be ahead of the business, right? Being in IT, I think personally, I like to be ahead of even our own business team. So by the time they come to us with a new requirement, oh, I can do it tomorrow, right? I think that's an excellent statement to make rather than to say, like any other IT shop, to say that it will come after 12 months.
Right.
So I think predicting the market, being in a product place, that's important.
Right.
Yeah. So in my opinion, it is very, very challenging, to get your product or solution implemented seamlessly in MSME sector, basically.
Why is it so? Yeah.
Yeah. So there are two reasons for that. One, MSMEs cannot afford IT talent, and IT talent do not aspire to work with MSMEs. It is like a South Bombay girl doesn't want to get married in suburbs, So this is the reality, basically. This is the reality. So this is the first reason they just take decision by impulse or mere friend ne ye kiya tha, mujhe bhi ye karna hai. So when you pitch a product, in between the implementation, the goalpost is changed. And then there is a dispute, then there is a dissatisfaction, and sometimes they even don't know what they wanted to achieve. So for us, we have also observed that many a times they dominate also so much. I'll give you an example. I have seen so many MSMEs aspiring to implement SAP. SAP is a very reputed, ERP or such level of ERP. And when they interact with the consultant who is implementing that, they would say, "नहीं, ये तो मैं ऐसे ही करूँगा." मतलब SAP might have 5 other ways to get the same thing done, but they say, "I want to customize it." And then they get lost in customization. Then they think that it is so expensive, and then they just go back to Tally or such very preliminary kind of programs. So for us, it is very, very challenging. Now, how you do it? So what we have realized that when we see MSME owner who makes decision about IT is a pure commercial person, he's a businessman. So when we tell him that you do this, you will save this much of money, or you will have this kind of quantified benefit, and then we have to continuously remind him that this is for what we are doing all these things. And that is where ability to implement technology is less important, and keeping the team from our side, from their side, on track, so that goalpost does not change, so that unnecessary customizations do not get so much of importance, is more important. So we always believe that the people with liaising skills would succeed in getting this objective fulfilled.
Also, I think the sector you operate in and the focus target that you have, they may not be necessarily very aware of what kind of changes they want. Are you also, by the way, curious to know, enabling, hand-holding them to understand, what technology can deliver, because they don't know anything about it?
Right. I'll tell you, we make videos, okay, and those videos don't talk about technology. Those videos are properly acted by the actors. And let's say, for example, we want to explain that data can be deleted and it can harm your business continuity. We show a flower vase which gets broken, and then we tell them that this cannot be fixed now, so we have to show them like that. So we produce such videos also, so that, they are aware about the problems, and then when they are aware about the problems, they'll be motivated to find the solutions.
Great. Mayurakshi, what is your suggestion of integrating tech and business in a way that maximum impact is generated and it's at the same time seamless?
Thank you. I think it starts with us technologists explaining to your probable client that you are a partner, hand-holding them to make their business more efficient. It's very, very important to take backstage here. I think I've seen most technology companies trying to prove their worth. You're stealing the thunder from your client. Technology is only an enabler. So I think let's keep our clients in the forefront, their businesses in the forefront, their bottom lines in the forefront, and help them achieve their goals and objectives, always keeping their revenue markers as benchmarks for ourselves. I think that is the short and to the point reply I can give you for this. Thank you.
Okay, very valid point, of course. I mean, it's just the solution and not the entire piece. Durga, your thoughts on the best ways to combine business, technology, marry them in a way that delivers actually the results?
Yeah, I think all of us are probably in one form or the other saying the same thing. At the end of the day, whatever business you're in, you have to make that needle move, right? So for example, for us, the validation of all the span of technology that we use is when a customer tells us that, over the past year, my accident rate has come down by 45%, right? Now, if that is your goal, if that's what you want your customers to say, then you've got to be very picky and choosy about, as Balaji said, resources are not infinite. right? So if that is the goal, then you've got to be very careful about what you embark on as a new project, what how much of resource you actually dedicate to it, and ensuring that at the end of the day, if he said his accidents came down 45% last year, it should move to a 50% this year. And what are those areas of that business that you're touching which will enable that to happen, right? And that, I think, is the key, to be able to really identify the sweet spot which makes the biggest needle move on the business side.
Great. We have some 6 minutes left. Balaji, the sector you're operating in, what is often said about tech is that, the emotional connect is always missing. Of course, I mean, we're all trying to make it as close to that as possible. But tell me, in your business, are you addressing that gap? It's not only the solution and the speed of business that you're executing, it's also about the contextual tech, What work is being done in your sector to address that gap?
I think in our context, it's important to understand whose emotion we're talking about, right? So we are a B2B business predominantly. And for us, our clients are really the banks. So what we really do is that we enable different users of the banks. So if you have a credit card or a debit card, when you go and tap your credit card at the lounge, we give access to that bank's user. And we are the largest in India. We pretty much cover 95% of the transactions are done on our platform. So we are fairly large. We are the dominant player in this market. But the emotional angle is really of the product manager at the banks. So they are the ones whose job it is to build innovative solutions for their consumers. So if you were mentioning outside that you are a consumer and you use a credit card of a leading bank, right? So their product managers are working with us. They are using our tool sets and our toolkits and our SDKs and our APIs to build a custom solution. I'll give an example, right? So recently, a large bank launched a product, and there what happens, it's like there are different tiers of benefits. So instead of issuing a fresh credit card to a good customer of the bank, what the bank is doing is that they're giving access to Indian lounges and lounges outside India at one level. But there is additional meet and assist services in India. And then if you're even an excellent customer of the same bank, you get additional services as well. And all this they're enabling without issuing or upgrading the card to the next level. So it's not, for example, HDFC, it's not upgrading from, let's say, Regalia to an Infinia. Rather, on the same card itself, the additional benefits are getting opened up. So these kind of solutions the banks are using our toolkit. So we are giving them the technology to go and design these solutions. So I think the emotional connection over here is that once you have utilized this kind of tool set to design your custom products, you always are looking for more and more, and are constantly calling with us. We are consulting with all these banks to suggest how best to take their product offering to the next level.
Vishal, how do you you cannot offer a solution that is one size fits all, but that is what it is, right now. How do you make it more contextual if you're moving from city A to city B, and these are two different MSMEs and they have different needs, but you have one tech solution? I'm just trying to understand, is there any effort being taken to make it more contextual, that what fits for city A may not fit in city B?
Yeah, so for us, there are a lot of complex parameters. Let's say, for example, we are having customers in metro cities, and we are having customers in remote places. The first problem is that in metro cities, internet is so easily available. It is so commoditized. In remote areas, still, you don't have very stable internet connectivity. So that is the first step where our complexities start. So we have to offer them on-premise solution. We have to tailor make the solutions for them. Second is the size of the MSMEs. It is varying. This kind of solutions are required by 10, 12 users to 100 users also. So again, we have to customize it so that there are different models, like you have 4-seater, 7-seater, 16-seater, like that, 12 users, 20 users, something like that. So that is another level of parameter, we have to consider. And the third is the presence and absence of IT manager. So many a times, the very small MSMEs don't have an IT manager, or he's a multi-purpose guy, who has learned some IT. And we have to deal with him in such size of the organization, where we have to deploy additional resources to complement the absence of a qualified IT guy. And when somebody has a qualified IT guy, many a times we feel that they take it as a competition. They think that we are doing something which he is doing. So yeah, very complex, but yeah, we have different models, and that is how we are dealing with.
Mayurakshi, your thoughts on addressing the emotional intelligence, that we always say is missing in the IT. Is there a way to deal with it? Is that needed? Of course it's needed, but how do you enable that?
So, we started with choosing a very non-tech name. Elixir is really, Elixir is the elixir of life, right? So we are hoping that the emotional connect is the key factor that really makes you an indispensable part of anybody's business. So I think you've really rightly hit on this. I think they need to understand, like going back to my previous point, hitting the emotional connect of your customer plus his customer, right? You have to help him also achieve that target. No point only hitting the emotions of your like my colleague said, the IT manager or whoever, right, which you're probably going to fail in anyways. So I think making them understand that tech does not necessarily bring in cost savings in terms of staff reduction. I think every non-tech person thinks that a technology company makes them insecure, right? So I think that is when we say emotions, I think let's understand what is the emotion we are looking at, and that is any insecurity you're taking away from an employee of a business. Saying that or it could be the project manager, right? He might be thinking, hey, my MD was gonna probably approve 50 resources in my team, and now this tech company comes in and my team size only remains 10 plus tech. You've made him insecure right there. So I think when we talk emotion, there is no other emotion here other than the insecurity field. We have to make them understand that technology is only an enabler to make them better in their day-to-day processes. And once you've done that, I think you've won the battle. Thank you.
And of all my esteemed panelists, Durga, your business is pretty further into that emotional part of it.
Absolutely. And as you can imagine, vehicle drivers are key constituents of what our technology actually provides. And as we see the emotional quotient, if you will, start at one point and very rapidly change. The first thing that the driver feels when he sees a camera inside his vehicle is insecure, because he feels that someone's monitoring him, the big daddy is going to shout if he's not doing something right, and so on and so forth. The first time that he realizes that the device actually beeped and woke me up when I was falling asleep, suddenly his entire perception towards what the device is doing changes completely. And then finally, we actually help drivers improve their behavior, right? So when through a gamification process, when they get rewarded for good driving behavior, then they start owning the technology, right? Then they start fighting for what they believe was, I actually did this and you did not actually tell my fleet manager that it was a good driving. So that then produces a completely different emotion. And then finally, at the end of the spectrum is, when typically we're all aware, right? In our roads and in roads everywhere, the bigger the vehicle, invariably the fault if an accident occurs is yours, right? We've had so many drivers actually come back and write to us because within 2 minutes of an incident, they could actually have a video on their handheld which shows that it wasn't their fault, and a two-wheeler actually came and banged them without their actually making any mistake. And that exoneration, right? That immediate exoneration from being the defaulter actually goes a great big mile. So emotional quotients are very, very critical for us.
And I think, just to conclude, I think all tech is moving in that direction in one way or the other. I think once you see the benefits of it, you start looking at it more than a machine and something you really look up to. But I wish we had more time, but great, and great having your thoughts on the subject. And Mayurakshi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Ravin.